right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Awakened People of Earth. I know it's been a minute since my last video. Had a lot going on, a lot of big changes, new studio, new instruments, doing digital music production, life flows, and you just kind of have to learn to go with the flow. So I do have a really special interview today. On my journey here recently to upgrade my flute, which turned into upgrading my flute collection, I've reached out to a really special and amazing flute maker, and his name is Miguel Medina, and he's with Singing Tree Flutes. And I'll make sure to put all of that stuff down in the bottom there so you make sure that you connect to him and connect not only to his website but his YouTube channel. And that's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today because I find it really special. And I can't wait to get into this because, I went to just buy a flute and I feel like I just met like a soul brother. That's kind of part of what the journey is about, man. You just kind of reach out and the universe brings you those that really resonate with your frequency, with your vibration. And that's what we have to recognize, man. You're always going to attract the right people in your life. And there's no mistakes, there's no coincidences. And this has just really, really been amazing. Every day is really just such a gift if you just allow yourself to take a look at that, open your perception, see the blessings even when it is a bit challenging. And that's enough of an introduction there. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and bring Miguel in, and then we're gonna have him introduce himself and talk a little bit about himself here. So let's see here. There's Miguel. All right, let's bring me in with him. Hey, Miguel.
Hey, what's happening? How you doing?
Doing well, man. I'm so excited for you to join me on my tiny little channel here. Um, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule right now, because I know your flute business is just taken off. And not that it hasn't already probably been amazing. Um,
Mhm.
I watched your interview the other day, and you were talking about how many flutes you've made, and holy cow, guys, we're talking thousands. Okay, so this guy didn't just pick up flute making and then all of a sudden his business is booming. Like, he's been working at it for a long time. So
Oh yeah.
that's what I really want to get into today, Miguel. Is I want to get into a bit about the background. We're not going to focus just on the flute making, which is amazing, and he will be playing a little bit for us today, so you get to hear some of that. But it's more about that journey, how you've kind of come to where you're at a little bit. You've been on this spiritual journey for a little while. You've kind of got a lot, that you've transitioned through, and you've also seen how it's shifted and changed even to where it is now. So why
Mm.
don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory? We won't go too deep into it because I know you talked a lot about that on your channel the other day with your interview. So if you guys want to know even more, we'll definitely have more of that on there. So I'll let you take it from there.
Sounds good. So welcome everybody. Glad to be here with you. Um, so yeah, we touched on it, but we kept it real flute specific. But the story's a lot bigger than that, And of course, the first thing that you said when you were doing your intro there is going with the flow, and that's like the key component to this whole journey is making the choice to live my life in a way where I'm not leading it. I'm not, studying and researching and coming from here all the time to make my decisions. I'm actually trying to come from here as little as possible to leave room to allow to be led in my life, right? And so it all started for me pretty young age. Like I went through, so my heritage is I'm half Puerto Rican, I'm half European. I was raised in upstate New York. They call us New Eurekans over there. That's like that's a Puerto Rican who lives in New
Nice.
York who doesn't speak Spanish. I'm the exact definition of that. But I was raised around that Puerto Rican culture, and just trying to figure out who I was, my own self-identity, and all of that. You know, Let me start by saying I was always spiritual minded ever since I was little teeny weeny. Like, if you were to ask me when I was 4 years old what I was going to be when I grew up, I would have probably told you a priest and an artist, right? And both of those things kind of came true in their own way. At least that's the only way I could understand it back then. Anyway, so I went through, and I've always been real spiritually minded, and always like prayed, and always believed in something greater than myself, outside of myself, that I could go to for help and guidance, right? It's always been there. But I didn't necessarily look at that in my teenage years. I was doing what most people were doing, trying to fit in, trying to figure out who they were. And in that, kind of became a hot mess for a while, right? Probably made some bad choices, hung out with
Yeah.
bad crowd, and did that. But around 20 years old, my conscience started catching up with me. And I was realizing that some of the choices that I was making was not in alignment with who I am, not by any means. And some of it can be pretty deep. Some of it could be as simple as like, I listen to that music because my friends listen to that music. I really kind of don't like that music, and we fit ourselves into these little molds just to be accepted by others, right? But it came down to a point where I hit a rock bottom place in my life. And in this time, I was going through some anxiety and some depression. And I actually, at this point in my life, had a notebook, and I was writing letters to, at the time, this is what I called it, was God, right? I have a sort of different interpretation now, but I was writing letters to God in a notebook, because I was not feeling good. I wasn't feeling like I was aligned with my path. I was confused. I was lost. I was scared. And I was asking for help. And I was writing these things like, please help me. I'm going through this. I'm going through that. I feel this way. I feel that way. And if you help me, I promise to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I promise to serve you by helping others. I promise to, live the best life that I can. And so when that happened, I don't remember how long I was writing in this notebook, but all of a sudden I had this massive turnaround in my life. In like a 3-month period, I think I dropped like 70 pounds of weight that I was carrying in 3 months' time. I got a job which led me to the more creative path that I'm on now. And I sort of rebirthed and rediscovered new things that completely sparked this new spiritual inspiration. And I was even just started taking anti-anxiety meds and everything like that just before I started writing those letters. And I got off of those meds, and all of a sudden my life was feeling extremely inspired, and I felt much lighter and clearer about who I am and where I was going. So that's where it all started. And then from there, woo.
Yeah. That's
You
awesome,
know?
man. That's thank
Yeah.
you so much. And I mean, you nailed it right on the head there with that. I mean, so what's important, there's a few things that really stood out to me that I feel are important to kind of address with others that are going through this too, right? Because we all have kind of been brought up in a certain structure and a certain system and way of thinking. And it's, we also all kind of go through this growth process where, we're just trying to find ourselves, right? Like whatever we've been taught or told is or isn't, like spiritual or God or any of those things, that in itself holds a certain connotation to that. And then you kind of almost, and with some of us, you kind of almost like push against that a bit, right? And that's part of why you go the direction you go. And then like you say, like you're trying to like hang out with other people, you're trying to find that connection, and you may be listening to music that you do or don't like, or doing things just as a way to find yourself. And yeah, many of us even make choices. I'm right there with you with kind of exploring in all kinds of areas that probably were not the best for me, right? And then making the decision to at some point to finally shift that. Now, it took me a long time to find that, and I felt super lost in that system for a really long time. But recognizing that whenever that happens, right? Like recognizing the people in your life, the music in your life, because it's frequency too. Recognizing, like, honoring your authenticity and what that path brings you. And like, this is where, like you were saying earlier, like really getting in out of the head and into the heart. right? And you mentioned this in your interview, and immediately I was like, that's what I want to put some focus on, is leading from the heart, man, not the head. You know, there's a big problem going on right now where everybody is waiting for someone else to tell them what to think and feel, what direction to go in their lives. You know, telling you that this is what's going to make you happy, right? The house, the dog, the kids, the cars, you know, material, and all of these other things. And we've lost the sight of what our own personal journeys are, and about finding our own happiness and listening to our heart space, right? Because I'm sure a lot of us have gone through that challenge or change where it's like, you know, I'm walking that somebody else's path, and I'm like, man, I'm not really even happy. I could have all those things, and I'm not even really happy. This doesn't bring me happiness. Like, okay, I have the car, the kids, and all that, and I see this all the time in the business that I work in too. And it's so interesting that's not happiness, right? And find yourself however you get there. And what I've been advising a lot on, what's been coming through me a lot through spirit and through guidance, and I share this in my, you know, with my own personal journey, is find what makes you happy and do that. Stop worrying about whether you're going to be surviving, right? Because that's surviving is not what life is about. It's about living, right? And finding what makes you happy and build a life out of happiness, and you will be supported, whatever that is. And you are an example of that. It's really, really good because you've been living your life that for a long time, and just allowing spirit, however you've chosen to kind of have that spiritual path build, it's been just guiding you through an amazing adventure. And now you're, you know, like I heard the story about how you started making flutes, and that was amazing. Like, you know, and you just went to some guy's house that invited you, and you're like, what the heck, you know, I'm gonna go in my van, and stayed in his teepee for a while, and he taught you how to, like, that was amazing, dude. Like, that's the way to live life. Like, hey, what the heck, that sounds great. I love the sound of the flute. I like music. All right, I'm gonna go that way. It doesn't mean you have to decide your life is gonna be a flute performer. It's just you start with what you love and what sounds good, what draws you in, and you follow that. And then that opens you up into a whole nother life path, right? I mean, so, right? Like that, so that makes total sense to me, man. And I love hearing your stories. And something else I'm gonna just kind of see. So something else I want to like touch on. You brought up there was about, like, even when you were like kind of seeking a bit inward, and you reached out to God, which I know is a trigger for a lot of people due to a lot of religious trauma, right? Whatever you need right now is fine, guys. So whatever you need for that connection, right? You're always connected, right? But you wrote out some specifics, and you reached out to that energy, that higher power, that source, right? And asked, you know, for that. Like, that's setting intention. That's reclaiming your life and your direction. And I think that's really powerful to do that. And then why don't you tell us a little bit, because this was a good part of your story. You started to really get the signs, but because you were awake to it, you saw those as the signs and you followed them. So why don't you talk a little bit about how that kind of started leading you into, I guess, the spiritual path that you're on now, which is more ingrained into like the Native American cultures, if I'm correct, right? Like that's what you're more focused into.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the journey continued from there, and I was a lot of things came to my mind when I was just listening to you speak, and basically one of the things that is part of this story that comes up for me is like how far maybe a person is willing to go to hold on to what's true to them. And I think that I got pretty extreme but the people that inspired me were even more extreme. So for example, after that, I started, you know, this might be a little bit funny and silly to some people, but what really was part of this big change was running into these people that were into the Grateful Dead. And these were like, I'm graduated high school already. These kids were still in high school, these younger kids. And I just kind of met them through the neighborhoods. And they were like, Miguel, you should go with us over to the Grateful Dead. They're playing in Albany tonight or whatever. And I went there. And again, coming from a hard background where the only thing men did was try to one up each other or prove that they were, more macho or tougher or whatever that they
Yes.
were, um, you know, um, to see people looking at each other in the eyes and being like, I love you, brother, and like hugging each other, like
Yes.
it opened up something in me that was huge. And like, I want what that is, right? And, I think later on, and as I was in it for a while, I realized that there's just as much, say sickness or weird stuff that would go on in those groups as there is any other groups or anything like that. But
Definitely.
what they symbolized, what they stood for. And the funny thing is all the people that introduced me to that way, they were in the phase of their lives, the one that I was just getting out of. But what they did for me is introduce me to who I truly was. And so I'm probably the only one that still has dreadlocks, and probably the only one that, you know what I mean, still
Yeah.
plays African drums, and like, really just super immersed myself into that, because it wasn't a phase. I discovered who I am. And it even brought me into my cultural roots, like, the African, Taino, native Puerto Rican side of myself, like, playing these drums and stuff. They were actually tapping me into my own ancestry. It was powerful, right? And
Yes.
so one of the guys that I remember meeting in this time, his name was Balaj, and he was just this hitchhiker. And he basically said that he lived just on like faith in God. So he had this thing where he'd hitchhike to a dead shower to wherever he was going, traveling the country, and he would only live on faith. So the way that he chose to live was he would um, never have money. He just tried to live without any money, just on like what he would call faith, and always trust that the next beautiful thing would come to him. So like he would, for example, get to the next town, and he would maybe ask somebody for some spare change. He would buy himself some lunch, give away the rest of the change to somebody else, because he didn't want to hold on to money, and he didn't want that, and he just wanted to live in this way where he had faith that the next thing was coming. That's pretty extreme, and we ended up being some of the people that picked him up for a while, and he spent quite a couple few weeks with us, or around, probably some of the dead shows that we were going to, or fish shows, and some fun funny memories. But and so that's what I did. I started traveling as well, and I started getting into rainbow gatherings. And we don't necessarily have to get into what that is, but that started in the '60s too. And it's a gathering that happens in the woods. It still happens today, and it happens. You can pretty much live on rainbow tour, if you so to speak. There's world rainbow gatherings. There's winter rainbow gatherings in Ocala, Florida. And there's the big national rainbow gatherings that always happen on the 4th of July. And there's over 100,000 people, and on the morning of the 4th of July, gathered in a national forest that the spot changes every year. We have a
Wow.
vow of silence to sort of protest what Independence Day is about. And it's the most beautiful thing to see, thousands upon thousands of people in a silence. And then we break that silence at rainbow noon, which is like whenever the sun is right about here, right?
Nice.
With a children's parade that comes through there. And then after that, everybody circles and has a big Om meditation with thousands of people. It's super powerful. Anyway, these are things that I did, and I just would roll with it. And I didn't have much money either. And I had a van, and I would go to the next town, and everything was leading me to somewhere. I mean, and this is like probably way too scary, say for some people. I would think it would be almost dangerous for women to do some of the things that I did back then. But again, just trusting that we would be safe, and everything would work out. And like go to Arkansas, and all of a sudden I'm in this junky little van I paid $500 for, so I could just travel down the road, and the gas tank starts leaking. And like, I don't know how to fix that. I don't know what to do with this thing, this rusty old van that I have that I'm traveling in.
Oh
And I
no.
just so happened to, in Arkansas, at this place where we were mining crystals, or, looking for crystals, this guy in a school bus shows up. He's like, "Oh, I can help you fix that. Why don't you just follow me to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we can go to the junkyard and get you a new, thing." And so then I had to drive from Arkansas to New Mexico, half tank max, so I didn't leak at the seam. You know what I mean? And we're just driving, following the school bus,
Wow.
and that's how it went. Everywhere you went, if there was something that came up and there was an issue, there was somebody there to help you out, and everything was just magical and beautiful. And looking back, one of the things that I remember now is when you look at, some people have who was their inspiration. And when I look back when I was a kid, who was my inspiration? The person that comes to mind the most is, guess who? Geppetto from Pinocchio.
Wow.
Just watching them Disney shows and remembering this old guy with a little poor simple house that just made toys to make people happy, and he fed the little mouse in the little mouse hole and all this thing, and that looked like a beautiful life to me. That,
Wow.
yeah. Which I could go on and on. I'm thinking about all these stories. Like 10
Yeah.
years old, when I went to my homeland in Puerto Rico, and my family lived very primitive, very village style. They didn't have doors on their houses. Like my Puerto Rican family was trying so hard to get away from that, go to America, be successful, go, do all these things, have this money and all this. And when I went there and I saw no doors on their houses and just mosquito nets over their beds, and our family came in and they'd have a big feast, and the whole mountainside was my blood relatives, and it was so family oriented. They shared everything. Everybody, my great grandma would make these 30-gallon vats of rice, and anybody could walk in their house and eat. And there was one TV on the whole mountainside where the kids would watch Woody Woodpecker. And just, that was a part to me. Sorry for going back there, but that really,
No, not
I
at all.
remember that memory so strongly, and being like, that's what I want. Everything that they're trying to get away from is where I'm trying to go.
Right.
This very simplistic life that wasn't about material things, and it was about family and love and creativity, you know what I mean? And being
Yes.
connected to the earth, you know?
Yes. No, that's, man, that's wonderful. And, and that's important. And just to recognize the impact of a lot of those things, you know what I mean? Like, um, there's so many things you touched on that I just really want to kind of recap, because I mean, that's a wonderful journey, and your awakened awareness and a lot of that is really amazing, and I think a lot of people can benefit from that. But one of the very first things that you kind of touched on that I feel is really important, it's been coming up a lot, is the masculinity, right, being addressed with what is masculinity, what's being taught, like the
Mm.
harshness of it, supposedly, it's, which is more based around ego, and it's more based around a certain social structure, and it's inaccurate. And like you said, like, here you go and you're meeting, they're like, hey brother, and they're sharing love and they're hugging, and like that part has to be really healed. And we had a men's group like last month, I think it was, and it's something that I've been really drawn to. It's funny, like I told you when I first started talking to you, I felt like we're doppelgangers in so many ways, and it's really cracked me up, because so like part of my journey in that is I've always been the artistic one too, and I've always been a sensitive kid and a young man, and so just trying to make peace with that has been a struggle, because it's like, where do I fit in? And I'm not like into cars, not that there's anything wrong with that, but again, like any of these things, it's just not stuff that it's like the typical, where the box they put you in, that this is what makes you a man, right? Like,
Mm.
I've never really been hunting. I've never really, I'm not into the typical like manly stuff. Sports, it's all right. I can enjoy watching sports, but it's not something I'm really into. I couldn't talk sports with anybody, legitimately. And then I got into, when I was around 19, I got into dancing. Well,
Mm.
being a man who's doing dance, and it was just something that came to me very naturally. Well, in one level, it healed me in a lot of ways. It gave me a really interesting inner strength. But then there was also like, it's like going against the grain a bit, right? Because they already have certain ideas of who you are. And
Mhm.
even in the last probably 10 years, when I moved out to where I am now, I had certain confrontations or, people coming up to me, making assumptions about me. And I just thought it was really funny because I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I can't help how I feel music. I feel it throughout my whole body. And I found a way to express that. And like you said, in getting in and just accepting the loving energy that you are, and it has nothing to do with male or female energies. It has nothing to do with feminine or masculinity. What we need to recognize is that femininity and masculinity are in all of us. It's finding a balance in those things. Finding that self-love is so crucial. Like, who am I? Loving myself for who I am, finding and connecting to that, and then finding a life and building a life that actually supports that. And then just, accepting it. That's how it is, man. And then the other thing you talked about was just like the guy that was kind of living, and support from like the universe, essentially, which is the business model that I've kind of set up through the business that my partner and I have. And it's more focused around just saying, all right, universe, we're going to show up in the best way possible for the people that we work with and help and assist. And you just bring in that abundance that we need to support that. I don't need anything more than I need. Like, I'm wanting to get more simple. And our next phase, we're working on building into a self-sustainable community and living more off the land and getting more into that and what I call the village, right? Going back to the village and just, we all work together, we live together, we love together, it's really the way it should be, right? And, my partner, she's funny because she says, why are we, we live in Iowa. She's like, why are we ordering food to be shipped into here? I mean, this is a farm state. There's farms everywhere. We have plenty of food. Well, it seems so silly but that's how the world is it's you getting stuff from everywhere. Not that I don't like culturally food, from all over, but it just seems silly that that's how we're dependent on other places, other sources to give us food. And the earth has everything you need. No matter where you're at, you can find a way to get that. And then, yes, if you need to supplement in some way, you can get that. So I think that was really awesome. And I love how you touched on how you still like get into the drums and, it's just owning those roots, right? Like, I did the same thing. This is where we're similar. Like, so I discovered a lot of those things too because of the rhythm. I started doing djembe and, just really getting down and drumming and figuring out, like, though I look like that most average Midwest white guy, right? But I got funkiness and I got like, I got this just rhythmic energy that you wouldn't get from just looking at somebody and trying to make an assumption based on what we're taught. And but I love it, man. I love drumming, and I love anything rhythmic, and which is why, like, hand pan, another thing that you and I both share. Hand pan, I've discovered, and I just am in love with this stuff. For me, this stuff's pretty new within the last year, and you've been really at it for a while. So, here I am going and watching your YouTube videos, which, guys, you need to watch his YouTube videos. They're awesome. And a couple of points I want to make about his videos that are great. One, you get to see the amazing flute work that he does, and it's crafted, and the craftsmanship is truly it's been well cultivated. He's done a really great job with that, but he's also an amazing flute player. And so you'll see him play these flutes, and that's incredible. That's worth just watching the new flute. Hey guys, I got my new flute, and then you play this badass jam, and I just love it. But also what he's been doing even more recently is, and I know you said you've kind of had this in the past, but he's doing these spiritual Sunday talks. And that's the first one that I saw you did a few weeks ago. I just knew, I was like, I have to talk with this guy. I need to interview him because it's really, they're really to the point. They're down to earth. You put a nice little background music on that you play and loop it, and then you bring a really deep and beautiful message. And just to kind of point this out, I mean, this is what the world needs. Vulnerability is healing. Recognizing, we're all working and we've all been hurting. We've all gone through so many changes and shifts, and it doesn't matter where you're at on that roller coaster ride because it's gonna do this. And you gotta learn to, like I said earlier, like go with the flow. One of my favorite quotes is from Bruce Lee, and that's "Be like water, my friend." And if you haven't seen that talk, it's amazing. But it's just about going with the flow of things. In your last Sunday talk, you talked about your mom. And, I just really want to put my heart out to you and just thank you for sharing that, for recognizing the loss that we all can experience in many ways, and honoring, but also honoring the life that people have, and really just appreciating that. And we know that there's a transition. This is part of the Earth School experience that we're in, and this isn't the end, y'all. Like, it's a much bigger picture. We're just experiencing that and just honoring those, that, the family, the ancestors, all of that. Like, I've really dove deep into that in my journey, as well as getting into ceremony and how important ceremony is, and however you do that, right? Like, just finding that and honoring that. So if you guys get a chance, watch the videos. They're great. And I found, so when I first started watching your videos, I'm watching a lot of the recent ones, and then I start going back further and further, and I'm like, dang, this guy's been doing this. You've been on YouTube since like it started, I think. And which is great. It's just amazing because it just shows too progress, and it shows like how open you've been to sharing your process, how much you love your flutes and love to share the information. You give lessons on how to play flute, different flutes, drone lessons. I mean, you guys need it. It's on there. Like, he truly is sharing himself with you. And this is what the world needs. This is what I want for my channel. This is what we want for our business. This is why you and I align, because I totally see that and recognize that. Like, to quote a movie that I just watched again the other night, Avatar, I see you, right? Like, because I see into you. I see what's going on. I see what you're doing. And from me and from the universe, I just want to give you a really big thank you. And the light you hold and the light you carry and anchor in to everybody and to the earth, and what you share it makes a difference. You give purpose and life, and the earth thanks you. All of us do. So I just felt necessary that I needed to share that with you, because it's that important. So if you don't hear that enough, you're hearing it again.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
So yeah, man. And so guys, what I'd like to do, because I know, let's see, we've got, we got a good little start here. If you don't mind, I would love for you to maybe do a little flute jam for us.
Sure.
And we'll just kind of get it, however you feel, however long you feel like going. And you guys just sit, kind of breathe this in for a minute, because I don't think I've ever seen Miguel play and not just get lost in the way he plays. Even when he's just like, here, let me show you my new flute. I mean, he's in it. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, my man. I'm just going to play acoustic this time, but yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Oh man, dude. As soon as you play, like the energy is just amazing. Like I feel spirit. Like
Hmm.
flute music is all. I think I've always known that it's been connected to me. But I just feel it so much more now. And when you play, man, like I just feel it. I feel that energy. I feel that heart, that love. You know, I call it my light language. And what we usually refer to light language, it's like your soul language. This is like your vibration coming through. This is spirit coming in too. It's just, there can be a lot that comes in through those sounds, through those vibrations. And it's definitely a soul language for you. And when you do it, man, I just feel it. I feel the message. I feel it in my heart. So thank you. That was just beautiful. Just beautiful. So, wow. It's like, where do I go next? Because how do you follow up a flute amazing ensemble like that? That's just gorgeous. So I guess, is there anything like specific that you feel it's on your mind right now that you would like to share today, based on anything we're talking about? I'd like to kind of open it up a little bit with maybe what's on your heart, or what you might want to share, just kind of see if there's something there.
Yeah, so there's these conversations, they get me thinking about all sorts of things that can, sometimes memories from a long time ago, and the journey, and playing the flute. And after I finished, and I appreciate all the compliments. That's really sweet. And I also think that I was thinking that it's tied into it, and I know a few people that have, say, the flute came into their life and they're like, I want to do that, and then they put their all into it and they become great flute players and all. But I think that somehow, like the ease that it is for me to express on the flute, I mean, part of that's because my world is immersed in it, but part of that was just there instantly. And I think it goes hand in hand back to this idea of going with the flow and being led to what you're supposed to do, and first, I don't want to discount anybody and their own process, because some people's gift is their intellect, and and then they have to practice, maybe creating more balance by getting more into their intuition, but what comes natural to them is their logical mind and their way to sort of assimilate things from their thinking and their process, their mental process. For me, that's very difficult, and I have to practice that to create balance for myself. And there's this kind of joke that I say a lot, is like, because I smoked a ton of weed when I was a kid, right? So,
Yeah, I get you, man. I'm there too.
I always make a joke about like how that helped me get into my intuition. I was like, I had to make decisions from my gut because I didn't have any brain cells left to be able to logically think about what I wanted to do. I'd be like, nah, I'm good, or okay, I'll do that.
That's funny.
But really going from that place and allowing to be led, and also thinking about like, how far are you willing to go to compromise that? And I understand that most people don't get to this place probably until they already have kids, until they already have tried to experiment in these other realms, and they already have like responsibilities and children and bills and things. And so they might not be able to take the route that I did. But the route that I took was I am stubborn. That is something that I have to admit. I can be a stubborn person. And I was very stubborn in the idea of, I'm not going to compromise who I am and what I believe for anybody, and for what society says I should do. And that was why I was in that depression when I was a kid, because anything in my world was telling me the maps, the roads that I needed to take to find success and happiness, and they didn't
Right.
resonate with me. Hey,
Right.
Miguel, when are you gonna go join the Marines? Nah, sorry, pops, that ain't happening, or like, and then college, like all of high school was to prepare you for college, and here I am, like, and it, I think, was advertised to me in a way that if you don't do that, you're gonna be a failure, you know and of course I'm rebellious toward that even thought. But I thought about it. I took a couple college courses, and if anything, I would have went to school for art. But here again, society tells you you have to go to college because that is the only way that you're going to be able to support your family, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that reality, is getting bigger and bigger. And yeah, I try to raise my child to go to college. She's getting ready to go to the University of Manoa. I'm so excited for her. But but we have to really be honest with ourselves. We have to listen to ourselves, and everybody's path is unique, and we can't let what everybody else in the TV and the society and Instagram is telling you what is beautiful, what is successful, what is happiness. You have to discover that for yourself. And so on that path, I never compromised. And so what that meant for me was I actually was, I wasn't going to do something that I didn't like. I wasn't going to do something that wasn't in alignment with my values and my point of view, or, of who I was. And yeah, that meant for a while, I was really broke. I was really broke. Traveling around the country. This was way before cell phones and way before GPS. And if I wanted to talk to my parents when I was young 20s, I had to find a payphone somewhere and pay $1.10 to say hello for 30 seconds. And truly on your own, just truly on your own, just trying to trust and have faith that things will work out. And it took a while, man. I had times where I was living under a tarp in Eugene, Oregon, sleeping on a cot coming into the rainy season. And I had some pretty, times that I kind of think I was excited about then, but looking back, I'm like, whoa, that was pretty rough. But still, that faith and knowing that I was going somewhere and I was learning things all along the way. And these things just fell into my lap. Learning
Yes.
how to craft and learning how to, like, travel and sell my wares. I was one of those, I never was a spare changer. I never had that inside of me that I could just ask somebody for a
Right.
handout. I didn't have that, but I had
This
to find ways to hustle and make ends meet. But I was really poor for a long time, and then those flutes came into my life, and they became something that I could sell for a relatively decent amount of money. And probably the first 5 years of my flute making life, we were still hippies that lived with like 6, 8 people in a house, and had a little organic farm and had all these
yes.
houses next to each other,
Yeah.
and lived up. My income was $500 a month, and I was chilling, dude. I was happy. I was happy as pie, right?
It's important though. You point out some really important things. One is that you recognize that what you gained out of that journey, right? So some of that was for you to learn and grow, and but also recognizing that the universe still provided for you, however that was, and enough that you needed, right? Like, this is the mindset that I try and get a lot of people into, is that the question I always ask is when have you ever not been supported, right? Because the struggle for survival and money, because money is just energy, y'all. It's just
Mhm.
energy. So what you have to recognize is, instead of trying to, because I've worked my butt off and had nothing, like, and jobs and just constantly working, and then it just feels like I'm constantly struggling because my connection was to the abundance of lack, and therefore I had a support system of more of that same frequency, that same mindset was the abundance of lack. And
Mhm.
so, the difference is when my life shifted, is that I stopped looking at my life that way. I started looking at how blessed I was and how, and even though the way my life was where I was at in my life at the time stayed the same, things began to shift because I shifted the way I saw my life. And like where you're at, like you were actually in a course of developing what was going to be the supported system, right? So yeah, when you first starting out, you're cultivating that skill, the flute making, and you're living life and you're gaining experience and you're still really happy with where you're at. So your energy is really building into really manifesting what is now very supportive for you and has become, really lucrative. But you get to do what you love. And yes, it is, and you're probably at times like, man, how much of this do I want? Because you don't want it to take away from your love of that too, right? And I know that's something you're kind of shifting as you change your business model a bit, but it's just, my point is, I guess, is find again what makes you happy. The system, if you go through school, that's fine, but don't go to school doing something and then look at it as, okay, I'll do this because this is what's gonna provide to me and make me money and give me the big dream house or whatever that I think that I need. Instead, go into like, I'm gonna learn and do what I know I will enjoy doing, and then in doing so, I will be supported with all that I need and more. And partly what helps to support that is also giving, right? Like, that's what really is going to help to support you even more. There's a few laws that you touched on, spiritual laws, that I like to refer to. One is the law of inspired action, and that's when you're inspired and things come to you and then taking action, which you did, learning the flute, moving into that space, and then however that led later, and continuing to move towards that inspiration. And then, the other one is kind of like the law of compensation. But I don't like to say it's just like what you put out, you get back. I mean, that's true, because that's part of the attraction, but it's also what you put out, you get more back. So when you put out positive energy, it comes back tenfold, man. So this is why, like, giving from your heart space, right? This is what we're trying to help others with. Like, give from your heart, we say a lot. Like, that's part of our donation-based system, is love and appreciation donation. And when you say that, people are like, man, I don't know what that means. Like, how do I give from my heart? Dude, it's just be honest with yourself, honest with the experience or whatever, and then you give from your heart. You can never give too much, and whatever you give, you will get back in a lot of ways. It's all energy. The universe will balance. It's always in balance. Energy exchange will always come back to you, right? And if there is an imbalance in some way with somebody that you're working with or something that happens, that's for them to sort out in their journey, and the universe will make the rest of it right for you. That I can attest to in an experience. That's what I've been experiencing just for the last year, and it sounds like to me that you've also been experiencing through your journey. You've had that. You're still here, and now you got a flourishing business, right?
Absolutely.
And it's because you've always been present and been authentic with what you want in that. So that stubbornness, that's what everybody needs, man. Be stubborn in that. Don't settle, man. Don't settle.
Yeah.
Don't do that job right now that you're stuck in and you're like, man, I'm miserable, but it pays the bills. Like, I get that, man. I live that, but it's, why live unhappy, right? Like, this is always my rationality. Like, okay, so you're in a job you don't like. There's other things you'd like to do. What's the worst part of this that could happen? You leave the job you're unhappy with. You go do some things you really enjoy. You're really happy for a while doing it. And then it's like, maybe it doesn't work out. And then you go back to doing the job you're unhappy doing, which I'll tell you won't happen. But if you do, you're just right back where you were. It's not like you missed out on anything. There's always going to be those jobs out there. So why not go find what you want to do that you enjoy doing? And maybe you're gonna find that that's exactly where you're meant to be, and you're supported doing that and being happy about it. Right?
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you touched on a couple of things there. What I like to call sacred reciprocity, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned something about my spirituality now, and so this flute journey has also gone hand in hand with my spiritual walk, and they can't be separated. But I don't know, I feel like if people are actually living their spirituality, you can't separate it from any other areas of your life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, you can put a business hat on for a while, but that's always there, and
your spirit, so you're always spiritual. Like that's
Absolutely.
what you recognize. We are all spirit.
Yeah.
So there's no I'm not spiritual. You're spirit, dude. You're always spiritual.
Right. So within that, couple of things like sometimes the sacred reciprocity, it's not necessarily in a direct way, right? So if this is a thing that's very unconventional, like back in the day when I used to have to worry about selling a flute and say business was slow and I was worried about paying my bills, guess what the first thing I did was? Probably gave away a flute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because my mind says, oh, maybe there's an imbalance. Maybe I'm asking for all this, but I haven't been giving enough. So here I am. And so I come from a really giving nature. The other thing about that is this spiritual path, this what a lot of people call the red road, which I can't even put it into a box like that. It's not like that on any level. Not my elders, my grandpa, my mushum. We don't think that way. But there's some traditional teachings that are really underground. It's interesting because there's all these modalities of spirituality within the U.S., right? That everybody is just super inspired by, and the South American traditions, I think, are really popular right now. The India traditions are really popular, and they all have medicine. They're all beautiful. I feel like we're meant to be inspired by all these areas.
Absolutely.
And the path that I'm on here, or like I said, I don't even like to say that, but I say that because I've been given the right to be a spiritual leader and do specific ceremonies in Ojibwe Native American tradition, right? And it's interesting to me how this tradition is still the most untouched by America. And I know that the reason why is because if you're up here and you're using things from South America, you don't have South Americans up in your face telling you that you're appropriating our stuff. And if you're doing stuff from India, there's all these things.
Right.
And and I'll say that there's a lot of politics around Native spirituality, and there's a lot of questions of who are you and why are you using our stuff, and there is that. But the truth is that any of the elders that I love and respect, they know that their spirituality is for all people, right? And I'm kind of getting a little sidetracked, but
No, I love
one of
that.
the
Thank
things
you.
in that tradition is that I hold on to, which goes back to my beliefs that I learned in the Rainbow Gathering, is we never charge money. Like there's these key things that I see and again, I don't say this to have judgment or discount anybody and where they've learned from or things, but these are things that I have to stay within these sort of things just because I want to respect my elders, but also because I believe in them. But one of the key things is we'll never ever say I'm a shaman. We'll never ever say I'm a medicine man. And we have teachings very strictly that say if you hear somebody say that, turn around and walk the other way, because now they're coming from a place of ego. Now they're coming and trying to say I can heal you, and we don't believe that. The Great Spirit's the only thing that can heal us.
Yes.
And we just do our best to be humble. And if we have the right to do those things, someone gave me, a Sundance or whatever, a vision quest, I can do these things for people. Well, they don't do you any good unless somebody trusts you and they give you tobacco to ask you for your help. And you never advertise that and say, hey, I'm this, I'll do that for you, I'll heal you. We don't mess with any of that. And that's something that I get really scared about in mainstream society. When people start telling me their qualifications, that's the first 5 minutes of their talk, I get nervous about that. But also we never charge money for anything. And so I spend many hours of my life pouring sweat lodges, singing songs, doing healing ceremonies. And yeah, we can accept donations, but we hardly even tell people that. We just go and we provide a place for people to heal. And I know that that's the big conversation these days is, well, people don't value it unless you put a price on it. And there's all of these things that people say
Yes.
nowadays. But the truth is that I know that when I do those things, I'll be blessed. And I'm actually a chief of a buffalo ceremony too. And the buffalo represents all this stuff we're talking about, manifestation and removing all of our doubts so that our dreams can come true. And we have all that. But the thing is that what I know is that if people are suffering and they truly want help, whether they have money or not, they're going to receive that help. And at very least, it's going to start them on a path of hope and inspiration. And maybe we can crack some things open to help them start, understanding themselves better. And we provide these things for people. And I know, and I've always known, this is the teachings of the buffalo, or things that I've, had my own visions and inspiration on years and years ago, is always knowing if I'm good to people, if I follow my heart, if I'm good to people, if I help others, I will always be provided for. There's just trust in it. And I could name many, many days where it's the day before the day my mortgage is due and I have no money, and I go into a sweat lodge and I sing some ceremony songs, and I come out, and after everybody leaves, I check on the computer and I sold exactly the $1,200
Yes.
worth of flutes that I needed to sell for the next day's mortgage.
Yes.
And it's happened to me
Oh,
numerous times. And now I'm evolving into a new place, which you mentioned, because I used to have a mindset that was that I'd always have just enough to be provided for. And now my prayer has changed to be like, I want to have more than enough, because I want to help people with that. I
yes.
mean, I want to help my daughter go to college. I want to help, I want to be able to help support my wife and chill on a beach in Maui every once in a while and actually cultivate that. And that's okay. That's not greed. And it also,
Yes.
I'm asking for help to continue to have the time and the freedom in my life to be able to reach out to our fellow brothers and sisters that need a hand, you know what I mean? And to be able to
Yes.
offer help to people. So it's
Yes.
huge. Yeah.
Oh man, like that's like you're speaking my heart, dude. Like this is why I know we're so connected, man. Like collective is wide open, and even though like you've got the spiritual walk that you're on right now, which I honor in every way, and I'm on my own spiritual walk, it's still so in alignment with so many things. And a couple things that I definitely want to recap that's really important that we talk a lot about here at Center Me. That's my business out here in West Des Moines. And it is one that, like, our mission here is about empowering others, empowerment to you. So you come in for a healing, and I do Reiki. That's one of my practices is Reiki, and we teach Reiki. Well, when you come in, I'm not the healer. I'm not healing you. I'm holding space. I am kind of calling in, and I'm praying and blessing that, and mostly I come from a space of gratitude for just the opportunity to be there for somebody and to hold
Mm-hmm.
that space. And then whatever I can do to help assist them with their body's own natural ability to heal and whatever they need. And so that is really, really important. And like the shaman thing, like you talked about, again, it's just recognizing that there's a big difference between that. Anybody who says I'm healing you, I'm curing you, um, that's that's coming from a different space. That's what I call 3D, right? That's the 3D matrix. I'm healing you, I'm curing you. It's you that does this. It's you. This is also part of taking responsibility. So we teach. I just taught a Reiki class over the weekend, and we opened our level 1-2 Reiki class to be done by donation with just a minimum materials fee, because we provide books and things too. But we did it this way because we felt it was such an important thing for people to learn, because they needed to learn to empower themselves and how to walk with the earth and the energy. And Reiki is it's a universal life force energy. It doesn't matter where it comes from, prana, chi. I'm sure the Native Americans, they have their way of speaking about it as well. It's universal life force. That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
working in. And it's just allowing people to recognize they have that ability in them to do this. Yes, you can have the assistance of others that can help maybe clear you a little bit, help. but it's you that does the clearing. Even when I do Reiki, your higher self, your spirit is guiding that energy wherever it needs to go and clearing what needs to be cleared. So I'm just like, thank you for letting me be a part of this. Here we go. And I just let it go where it needs to go and know and trust that that's what's happening. So that's amazing. I love that you just, again, it's just like two paths, but one journey, right? Like it's really beautiful, man. I just got chills even saying that. So that was really important. And that is important to recognize this. And then there's nothing wrong with opening yourself up to receive more. And what's key in this is, you pointed out again, is, and I call this service to others, service to humanity. Taking care of yourself is a part of that journey. You can't help others if you're not in a good place. So the journey starts with you, right? Heal what you need to heal, do what you need to do to get you right, get yourself grounded, get yourself clear, find that alignment, that purpose, that happiness, and then share that with others. Teach others, share what you know, help others whenever they need help. Share that love, that compassion, and that is what will, for one, help to support all of us, and two, what's going to bring in all that, whatever it is that you need and support. And like you're saying, like now you're like, I want to provide more, not just for myself, but for my kids, for my family. I want to, every once in a while, I want to take a travel. I want to go to a nice place, right? Because I recognize that's also part of my journey, and that's a part of your free will. That's a part of your, what you're here to do too, is find that enjoyment. And the universe says, hey, no problem, man. We got you. You just keep doing what you need to do for others. Show up where you need to show up. Be whole, be loving, put intention where it needs to be, and we'll take care of the rest. And look at you've shifted that energy, and then look at your business. I mean, it's just, I know even just since I first started watching you, because a friend of mine bought a flute from you, I've just seen a huge jump. I watched it just a little before Christmas, and it's been just like building and building. And then here I finally could buy a flute. Which, guys, I want to point out, I'm buying 3 flutes. I didn't, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. I might have, but I'm getting 3 flutes. I didn't just get one. Because I just couldn't help myself. They're all so good. We were just talking about this earlier. I'm like, I could get them all, dude. I still want more. I'm not even gonna lie. And I bought a drum. I bought a Rav Vast, which is just amazing. And you helped me pick out a flute that matched. And this is what it's about. Like, because my heart is in music. My heart is in sound. I honor that. And whatever else I need to do for the rest of the people that I come in contact with community, I'm just going to show up and be there, man. I'll be there, right? Because I am blessed in a way that, I get to play music. I never thought in my life that I would be like doing something I like playing music, playing drums, playing flute. I never even saw myself playing flute, by the way. And here I am doing it for people, and they enjoy it. It's helping them, and I just love to do it, right? And so how amazing, how blessed am I? And it's not because I'm doing something for them and I'm amazing at playing flute and all this. No, I got people that come in and ask me, that allow me to have this opportunity, give me the space, right? I'm here to hold space. I'm here to journey with you one way or another and just share love, man. Love, right? So that's what the heart's about. So, man, Miguel, this has been great. I think, we're reaching right around the hour mark, and I could talk forever with you about these. And I hope that maybe we can do this again. I know you got your own show going, and I would love to really invite you in again and do another talk when there's time, or when we can set this up again, if you're open to it.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, dude, this is great. So thank you once again for this. I think, I'll just kind of say one little last message, and I'd love for you to share whatever you've got for people. And then if you'd like to play us out a little bit, that would be wonderful. So guys, I just want to remind you again, if you like this content, you like what we have here, please like and subscribe here. And make sure you like and subscribe what Miguel is doing over there at Singing Tree Flutes. I know you'll like it. Just go over there, subscribe. It's a no-brainer. Get on his website, start looking at the stuff he's got. But his YouTube channel is a good follow too. He's got a lot of really wonderful advice. He's a great, wonderful guide. So just kind of follow those things, and be good out there. Listen to what we're saying here. Follow your heart. Find your happiness. And stick to that, and don't let anything misguide you from that path. So, all right, Miguel, what do you got for us?
Oh, Well, if you're a man, I want to tell you that I love you, and I want you to tell another man that you love them too. And if you're a woman, you probably already tell people that you love them all the time. But just keep being honest with yourself and keep loving yourself, and loving yourself enough to take the time and energy to make your greatest life. You know, that's what it's all about. Yeah. Okay.